Case study number 24 is a family of four living in Sacramento, California. Terry is 45, married with two daughters in their 20s. He was born in Pakistan and moved to the U.S. at the age of 4. He has a master's degree in engineering. One daughter is an aeronautical engineer and the other is a sociologist entering law school. Terry became a target just after 9/11. The entire family of four are overt targets of gang stalking and microwave attacks. Normally only one person is targeted overtly within a family group. Terry's family is very religious, Baha'i faith, and very close-knit. They are lucky compared to other targets who are purposefully isolated from family and friends. This family of targets has drawn together closer since they are aware of a collective torment. Terry had several common risk factors: above average intelligence, foreign birth, interracial marriage, religious minority. But this case was strange because these were not the usual high number of risk factors, and the overt targeting of an entire family was outside the norm. I visited the family and observed them for several days. They are loyal Americans who prize education and freedom above all things, yet they were in obvious distress. Terry has owned his home for 28 years. The neighbors were newcomers who ran the gamut from strange to menacing. I identified about 8 different neighbors who I considered to be behaving in the standard manner of perpetrators. Many would come and go at the same time as Terry's family members, as if they did not have regular working hours. This shadowing activity is common among TIs, and is designed to let the target know that they are being observed and their comings and goings are known. According to Terry, some of the neighbors' houses where they live were not the neighbors' only homes, and may not have been their primary residence. Several neighbors would stand outside their yards and glower at us as we sat on the porch. This in and of itself was not terribly unusual, but he was right. Something was in the air. The family reported microwave attacks that featured shocks, stings, stabs, burns, and the wasting effect of generalized fatigue and emotional distress of standard non-lethal microwave attacks. The entire family was experiencing fatigue and moderate to serious health effects due to frequencies that interrupt sleep, induce fatigue, and cause a general physical wasting. Like most TIs, they sought relief from their torture with shielding, which often included everything from thermal blankets to Faraday cages to lead bricks, in an effort to deflect the physical heating and bodily deterioration from being cooked. Terry has an engineering degree, so his house was a collection of what I find in the homes of most TIs: electronic detection equipment, thermal blankets, oscillating fans, humidifiers, and even at one point the family resorted to corrugated sheeting, placed at discrete angles stacked all around the outside of their house. The image of 12-foot by 3-foot wide corrugated sheeting entirely surrounding the outside of a house in suburban Sacramento did not go unnoticed. Terry showed the authorities the readings of elevated levels of microwave energy in and around his house, the burns on thermal blankets, the burns on vegetation outside the house, documented health effects on the family members including lupus, and the constant harassment and stalking behavior of his neighbors meticulously documented, all to no effect. Terry bravely made the evening news for 2 weeks, at which time he was forced to take his shielding down. Terry reported to me previously that he was walking on the side of his house and felt a blast of warm air. A large hose was coming out of his neighbor's attic and into his yard in a concealed manner. The neighbors who moved in all around him shortly after his targeting with microwave weapons began had planted fast-growing trees and hedges that formed an enormous U-shaped barrier 30 to 60 feet high on 3 sides of his home. It was a barrier that contained the air around his house very tightly. The prevailing wind generally pushed the airflow toward the front of his home and into the open area of the barrier, thus containing the air in a tight pocket around his home. When Terry discovered the concealed hose, he mounted very large industrial fans in his backyard and pushed the captive air out of the artificially created air pocket. A school that is less than 100 meters from his back door was immediately evacuated in what was described publicly as a gas leak emergency. I personally witnessed his immediate neighbors often react to a distinctive horn. When it sounded, they entered their houses and shut all the doors and windows for approximately an hour. When the distinctive horn sounded again, the neighbors emerged from their homes as if they had been given an all clear. Subsequently, the suspicious neighbors can be observed washing down their cars, the sides of their houses, and even the sidewalks with a high-pressure hose, leaving a distinctive residue on the ground. At night, the neighbors can be observed using a black light or ultraviolet light inside their homes. Ultraviolet light is a primary means of destroying virus particles. Virus in the lab that is exposed to ultraviolet light will literally fall apart in very short order. The reason that Terry and his family are targeted together is that they are in a distinctive category of the experimental weapons development program. Terry and his family are being used in an experimental fashion to test the use of small amounts of biological and chemical agents in tandem with microwave frequencies. The experimental virus or chemical particles are released from the house next door into the air pocket around his home, formed by the enormous hedges and trees that surround his house in a U-shape. The horn is sounded, and the neighbors quickly enter their homes and shut the doors and windows to prevent exposure. Terry, his wife, and their 2 daughters are bathed in microwave frequencies that resonate or spin the viral and chemical agents to increase their activity within the human body. The blood-brain barrier porosity is altered by the microwave attack, and particle sizes that would normally be blocked are allowed to cross the blood-brain barrier directly into the brain. The microwave weapon is tuned specifically to the resonance frequency of the viral or chemical particles and bathes all 4 of their bodies, and thus increases the reactivity of the introduced agent millions of times above normal. This functions the same as giving the experimental group a massive dose of the experimental agent. The exposure is made and then allowed to dissipate, at which time the all clear is sounded and the neighbors emerge from their homes and wash down the sides of their houses, their cars, and their sidewalks. Normally, biological warfare agents will deteriorate almost entirely in a matter of hours under conditions of direct sunlight and heat. Terry and his family are being used as human experimental subjects to perfect the latest technique for using chemical and biological agents in conjunction with microwave weapons. Terry is plagued with health problems that have left him unable to work. When he visits the doctor, tests of many kinds are run, and the results and those of his family are given to the government perpetrators of these crimes in order to measure the effect of the viral and chemical agents. Terry and his entire family are in a terminal experiment that will end in death. He and his family have been sacrificed to perfect the latest use of non-lethal weapons in conjunction with biological and chemical warfare. The Department of Defense hides these programs in the Department of Justice under the title of crowd control in order to avoid detection, which would put them in violation of international treaties, not to mention war crimes. I have told Terry that he should move, but he was adamant that he and his family would stay no matter what. I informed him of my worst fears, to which he replied that the experiment would only recommence at a different location. From my experience with the target population, I could not dispute this assertion.